Welcome to another episode of Municipal Focus. My name is Kevin Tachi, and I will be your host for this episode. We usually use this program as a vehicle to provide you information about things that are going on in and around our communities or anything that might be on another government level, whether it's county government or state government. Joining us today, he is the town administrator in Whitman. It's Lincoln Heineman. He's no stranger to the show. He's been on before. Lincoln, welcome back.
Morning. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for making the time, Kevin.
I'm glad you and I had made a little bit of a pact a while ago that we would try to at least convene and have regular, maybe quarterly or as needed conversations about the ongoing, especially whether it's with your office, with the town, or big events like town meeting. So that's kind of the premise of our conversation today is to kind of talk about us leading up to, town meeting, which is just days away.
It is May 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Continuing to be in the auditorium, which we're thrilled to be there and not be doing outside or anything, even though that was nice. But yes, 7:30 p.m. on May 2nd.
So right out of the gate, the first question, talking about preparing the fiscal 2023 budget. What was that like? What has that been like?
It's been good. So this was my first full budget season. And so it was great to be with the process from front to back this year. I think in a lot of ways, we had a really successful budget season. We sort of, this is a little bit of inside baseball, but I think it's really important. We started the budget season with using the town's accounting software, which is called SoftWrite, to build the budget up from receiving department requests through there, going through the process with the Board of Selectmen and with the Finance Committee. And I think that was really successful. We got building the town's budget. It's a multi-million dollar budget. We got off of building it on spreadsheets and got on to building it on an accounting software, which I think has been really effective and has been really helpful in transparency and letting everyone know earlier and more clearly in the process where we're at.
What have been from when you get the cherry sheets from the state to where you're trying to figure out what's going on? What have been some of the challenges regarding the funding for the municipal budget?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the same as a lot of your viewers have seen every year. And unfortunately, once again, that is a challenge, which is in terms of we have fixed costs that go up at a rate typically higher than how much taxes can go up each year, according to the limitations of Proposition 2.5. And so, as I'm sure your viewers know, Proposition 2.5 requires that, for the most part, that the property tax levy each year, and personal property tax levy in aggregate throughout the town, setting aside new growth, setting aside additions, renovations, new buildings, can only go up in aggregate 2.5%. And I think that one of the challenges, so for example, pension and the pension obligations that we owe to Plymouth County Retirement this year went up a little more than 8%. So that's sort of an example of the limitations, that we experienced. Nevertheless, I think we had some good projected revenue growth in terms of some of the non-tax revenue coming in particular, the excise tax that people pay on their vehicles, building permit fees being projected to be higher than, say, for example, 10 years ago. And so some of those pieces together and then in partnership with the schools and building their budget have allowed this proposed budget before town meeting to include a few things that the town's really been wanting to do for many years and have been identified in the strategic plan that was just finalized recently by Board of Selectmen in concert with a lot of folks. In particular, two major things I'll mention is in the budget as proposed is a full-time facilities manager for the town. We've had an excellent part-time facilities manager, Bob Curran, who many folks know, who has also served as the building commissioner. He's retiring, and we're taking that opportunity to attempt to have a full-time facilities manager to really build in a more systematic way what the capital needs are for the town, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep up with maintenance. And briefly, the other big piece on the town side of things that is a projected add is getting a full-time building commissioner. So again, Bob has been part-time. We're actually, I think, the only community I can find of our size in the entire state, and certainly in the eastern part of the state, that doesn't currently have a full-time building commissioner, to make sure that our zoning bylaws are being followed, to make sure that the state building code's being followed. And so I think that, those are sort of the two main investments that we're looking at on the town side of the budget. Again, in concert with the strategic plan, with the Madden report that folks have heard before, to get towards that level of services in those areas that people want and need.
So it's interesting you mentioned about the schools and knowing that when it comes to a municipal budget, the biggest piece of the pie goes towards education in where it's kind of a shared school district. What was the process like for settling the town's annual school assessment for Whitman Hanson Regional? And I know from years past that usually there's like the first offer. This is the percentage that we're projecting, and then there's a volley back and forth. Well, this is what we can do. This is what our budget projects. Similar this year, or have there been some nuances?
Yeah, I mean, similar in some ways. We've tried some different things in that partnership, and it is a partnership, right? It is a partnership between the town of Whitman and our elected and appointed officials and the public at large, the citizens, the same folks in Hanson in terms of the elected and appointed officials there and the citizens there, and then of course the school district, and making sure that the kids and the school children in both towns are receiving the education that they need and that they deserve. So I think a couple different things that we tried this year primarily was having a joint meeting between the two boards of selectmen in Hanson and Whitman, including some of the folks from the schools as well, to talk about what schools assessment fit within each town's budget. And I think, I think that was, it certainly wasn't the first time that the town did it, but it was the first time in a few years anyway that we had that. And I think it was good. I think it was good for everybody to be able to lay the cards on the table regarding what each town can afford. Again, within the limitations of Proposition 2.5, but also to hear both at that meeting and then in school committee meetings. I attended several school committee meetings with several selectmen from Whitman this year as well, to hear them in their meetings about, what priorities they have, what budgetary challenges they have. So I think at the end of the day, we did have some more and earlier communication, more public communication too. Again, when we're talking about that transparency piece, there's always going to be some tension, but I think in a lot of ways, we through that process, we did have some more communication. At the end of the day, we have an assessment from the schools that the town of Whitman can afford within its tax levy, and also is achieving some really important things on the school side. We talked about a couple investments from the town side that we're hoping to achieve in this budget. The schools have a few investments that they're attempting to achieve too. Most importantly, full day kindergarten without a fee for both towns, which is obviously has been a really important goal for them in their 5-year plan, in their strategic plan. And it's obviously something that I think everyone is really happy that we're moving forward with that. It's obviously the right thing to do.
How important is a budget partnership like this when it comes to the respective boards of selectmen? Now, not everybody is going to agree, but we know that there are going to be passionate pleas on both sides, because that's what these individuals are elected to do, is for the betterment of their respective community. How important is this get together where the two sides sit at the same table and discuss things, regardless of any animosity. I don't want to say animosity, but folks not being happy with what they're hearing or not, you know, feeling what's going on at the particular time. How important are these meetings to hold on a regular basis to kind of build a partnership?
I think it's critical. It can be uncomfortable. As I said, there can be some tension, but more communication is always better than less, right? And so I think, we tried this form of communicating this year. We might try it in a different way next year, but I think the most important thing is to keep trying, to keep having that communication with the three key partners, with the two towns and the school district, and the elected folks in the schools, the school committee, and to keep talking about the priorities for the schools, the priorities for the towns, and what we can work, what we can do within the budget, and what folks can afford. I think it's also sort of looking at that dual role that the schools folks have too, is both looking at the what's needed most importantly for the education of our children, but also financially what we can do. So again, more communication is always better than less, and I'm certainly committed to continuing that.
So before we move forward talking more about the upcoming special and annual town meeting, we have to look back at January and any impact that we could have in regards to the January town meeting that didn't have a quorum. Do we see any of what was on that warrant somehow be matriculated into the annual?
Yes. So as you mentioned, the special town meeting in Whitman, when the town seeks to appropriate more than, I believe it's $25,000, requires a quorum of 150. Fortunately, we were at the height of the Omicron variant. I think it was right after a snowstorm. We had some bad luck there, and I believe it was 14 citizens, not enough to have that 150 quorum. We were able to get a few things done that didn't require that quorum because it wasn't appropriating monies more than that $25,000 threshold. But the big pieces, and primarily trying to move forward with the desperately needed Department of Public Works building on Essex Street and a new building there. Unfortunately, that we weren't able to pursue that at this January town meeting. However, it is on this town meeting warrant for May 2nd. The same exact article, proposing to use a little more than $1 million to get an owner's project manager for the project to an attempt to build a new Department of Public Works building, and also to seek architectural drawings and have full architectural drawings with these monies if they're appropriated to move forward with this project. Both it's critical for the employees over there to have a safe work environment. They do a fantastic job, an amazing job with what the tools that they have. But I think it's become clear, and I think it's clear to everyone who's been paying attention to that we need to give them the tools to do their job, to service the community, and to provide the services that everyone wants and deserves. So,
if I can, just a little public service announcement on my own, and it's not necessarily to sway anybody, but as somebody who has proudly worked in the town of Whitman for close to 20 years, I've always had a great appreciation for the fire department, the police department, but especially the Department of Public Works for the work they do, especially in the wintertime when I'm driving from community to community and I see how the cleanup is going, and
absolutely.
they do an astounding job, all year round, but especially in times of inclement weather, they're there. And if they're down limbs, they're out there. And so I see them as deserving, very deserving of a newer facility, just like, you did the renovations to the fire department years ago, back in 2007, building a new police station. I think it's paramount that eventually that the citizens find a way to compliment the folks who do a great job with the DPW. So that ends my public service announcement. But I think
I completely agree. The work, as you say, when you go from community to community, when we see how much and how quickly and what a great job they do in snowstorms in that back in that very destructive downburst that we had at the end of October and how quickly they got Whitman cleaned up. It's amazing. The work that they do is amazing. And one other point I'd say that I think a lot of folks don't think about, but is another of their challenges that, again, they meet and exceed every year in every snowstorm. We have a lot of sidewalks in town.
Yep.
And the work that is very labor intensive, clearing those sidewalks, the main road sidewalks for pedestrians, and they do an incredible job.
Indeed. So besides the particulars for a new DPW building, what do you feel are some of the other key articles that are going to be on either the special or the annual town meeting warrant?
And actually, I want to talk about that. One other thing I would be remiss in not mentioning regarding the school's budget briefly is the non-mandated busing issue. So that has been, both towns traditionally have funded a line item in the budget as proposed and assessed by the school committee for busing children who live less than 1.5 miles from school, who are not required by the state law to be transported, but is obviously, both towns have made a commitment, which is, I think everyone would agree, is the right thing to do to bus those children. This year, the schools, and again, this is a partnership piece. Some citizens, led by John Galvin, Sean Kane, and then in addition, a partnership with the schools folks and several selectmen, including Selectman Lamatina here in Whitman, worked tirelessly to seek a different way of calculating busing, seek a different way of seeking state reimbursement. That is one of the main benefits of regionalization, state reimbursement of, we project 90% of some of the busing costs this year. And again, that partnership, again, with the schools folks, the schools financial folks, has led to significant savings for both towns and the school district as well. And so that's made a lot of the budget investments that we talked about, the needed investments, both on the town side and the school side, that's made those things possible this year because of those budget savings. So that's been another, a really positive thing to come out of the partnership that we've talked about. Regarding articles, probably the other article outside the Department of Public Works building that will generate the most discussion is the proposed allowing of up to 5 retail marijuana establishments in town. As many folks know, many communities throughout the state and including on the South Shore, several years ago, these citizens and a ballot initiative legalized the recreational use of marijuana, the adult recreational use of marijuana. Several towns, as I mentioned, throughout the South Shore, have allowed the sale, manufacture, growing of in their communities of recreational marijuana. And Whitman has not. Whitman has chosen to not have those facilities so far. On the warrant, as proposed by the Bylaw Study Committee, is an article that seeks the town meeting's input and the citizens' input on, do we want to reconsider that previous decision from several years ago? I look at it not from the lens of the perceived morality or immorality of the use of the drug. That's up for the citizens to decide, right? And to be clear, it is legal, right? The citizens as a whole in Massachusetts decided it would be legal. The question before the town meeting now, and the lens that I look through it is, we've talked about these investments. We've talked about things that people want and need in terms of services. But no one, of course, wants their taxes to go up. No one wants that. I look at it through the lens of revenue. And so, as I said, recreational marijuana, its use is legal. Retail sales are not allowed here in Whitman, but they are, of course, in every community surrounding Whitman, except for East Bridgewater. Retail sales of recreational marijuana are allowed. So the revenue piece that would be possible there is two pieces. One, if the town of Whitman had retail facilities and they were fully permitted and everything, 3% of gross revenue, in another article at town meeting, would come in of those facilities, recreational facilities, would come in as revenue to the town. And in addition, there is a process in state law currently where a host community agreement can be signed and negotiated between the Board of Selectmen and any possible recreational retail facility for up to another 3% of gross revenue to address whatever impacts may happen because of that retail establishment. So up to 6% of gross revenue could come in as revenue, and that would be revenue that could support the things that the community wants and needs, but wouldn't be coming from property taxes, from real estate taxes.
You're a man who knows many people. What are the conversations that you have had with communities that have realized, host community agreements and then have allowed up to a certain amount of recreational marijuana shops, and how have their communities flourished because of these agreements and the community willingness to allow it?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, a lot of, all of the surrounding communities, at the exception of East Bridgewater of Whitman, allow retail facilities. Certainly have had a lot of conversations with the town administrators and town managers on the South Shore. We regularly communicate and bounce ideas off each other, and hey, what are you doing on this topic or that topic, and get new ideas from each other. I've heard only positives in terms of having recreational facilities, recreational marijuana retail, manufacturing, and growing facilities. Certainly, the financial benefits are real and can be significant. It obviously depends on if we ever have a retail facility and how much revenue, how much business they do. But it's certainly been a boon to other communities in moderating their real estate tax rates. And further, it is outside of the local permitting process. It is highly regulated at the state level, certainly, more highly regulated than, for example, alcohol. And so I have not heard any negative impacts, certainly on the South Shore, directly from retail facilities on the communities there. But a lot of positives, again, in terms of revenue and being able to moderate the real estate tax rate.
Any other articles that you want to touch upon just as we get ready to wrap up our conversation?
Yeah, I think the other big thing I want to mention, we're talking about real estate taxes and attempting to moderate the real estate tax increase, in particular for residential homeowners, but also business owners. There are three articles on the town meeting warrant that would allow for increased or new exemptions, in particular for senior citizens in town from parts of their real estate taxes. And that's certainly something that I'm committed to, as we talk about a new DPW building, a new middle school or renovated middle schools on the horizon. There are things coming down the road that will have an impact, if the voters choose to build them, choose to approve and appropriate monies for them, it will have an impact on folks' real estate tax rates. So one thing I'm really committed to and want to continue to do each year is to increase exemptions available, in particular to lower income seniors. One of the articles on the warrant would increase the exemption for seniors who have limited assets and income, and increase the amount by $500 that they do not need to pay on their real estate taxes if they meet those income and asset thresholds. Another piece would allow for a real estate tax exemption for Gold Star families. Those are parents or guardians who have lost a child to warfare. And then finally, an expansion, as a proposed expansion of the senior tax work-off program. So this is a program through which seniors can do work for the schools. They work in almost every department in town, doing great work. And they would do that work in exchange for monies off of their real estate taxes. So right now it's based on a maximum threshold. What the town meeting article would do would be to attach it to a maximum number of hours worked and increase the exemption that would be available for them in exchange for work for the town departments.
Fantastic. Well, as we're wrapping up, any other friendly reminders regarding town meeting that you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to remember that it's May 2nd. Obviously, all citizens are welcome, and we'd love to have everyone here. Nothing would make me happier than to have every citizen here. At 7:30, May 2nd, in the Town Hall Auditorium. We will be having plenty of masks available for folks. And also, we received both the town purchased some COVID-19 test kits. We also received some through the county, through Plymouth County. So we'll have plenty of those on hand. We've been handing those out and distributing those every day at the senior center, the library, and town hall. We'll continue to have plenty there. So certainly hope everybody feels safe in coming out and participating in democracy.
Well, I want to thank you again for our partnership and being able to have a regular conversation, just to share information to the folks who tune into WHCA and who are looking for updates and information to make key decisions for the future of the community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Kevin, and thanks so much for your time.
And we want to thank you, the viewer at home, for tuning in to programs like this. Until our next conversation, have a great day.